Walter White being a killer is definitely an understatement. He's not a naturally born killer, but he's an individual who made a decision based on hearing that his life was limited and took a descent into darkness, which ultimately led him astray from the straight and narrow life that he once led. He's responsible for nearly 300 deaths in the Breaking Bad universe. The only character that comes close to Walter White's extremely high kill count is Gustavo Fring. However, with such a high kill count to his name, it got me wondering, what was the most difficult one for Walter White to carry out, and the one that broke him the most? Well, I think I've got it, so let's jump into it. Here is Walter White's most difficult kill in Breaking Bad. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The kill that I think is the one that birthed the killer in Walter White and was easily the most difficult kill that he had to commit in the show was the second death in the entirety of Breaking Bad, and that was the murder of Crazy 8, which came in episode 3 of season 1. I think this for a number of different reasons. The Apprehension. Unlike the first kill in the entirety of Breaking Bad, the death of Emilio, which Walter White was responsible for due to the fact that he caused a poisonous chemical storm inside of the RV, the killing of Crazy 8 was one where we saw that Walter White put it off for a long time before actually doing it. It lasted a couple of episodes, and we saw that he was almost talked out of actually doing it, showing that he really didn't want to go through with it. With the killing of Emilio, it was either do it or die, whereas in this situation it wasn't like that at all. At this point, Walter was an individual who found himself in a situation that was way outside of his comfort zone. A coin was flipped where he had to either deal with the body of Emilio, or he had to deal with Crazy 8, who was also known as Domingo, and he drew the side where he needed to deal with the individual that was still alive. With Jesse dealing with Emilio, it meant that the pressure was getting to Walt and he needed to deal with him before Jesse came back and expressed his frustration and disappointment towards Walt, as it was a situation that he himself needed to resolve. We saw this get put off for several episodes of the first season of the show, ultimately resulting with a 25-minute section in episode 3, where we saw the killing actually take place after Walt was on the verge of releasing him, and he even asked Crazy 8 to convince him why he should be let go, showing that the apprehension was there and that this was something that was extremely out of character for Walter in that moment. He didn't want to be in this situation, and if he could have found a way to let him go without him needing to do something that was alien to him, such as murder, something which was going to be extremely difficult for him to do, then he'd rather take that route. So the apprehension was something that was embedded in the character like no other time in the 5-season run. He stood there and watched Jane die when he could have saved her. He pulled the trigger on many others and exhibited a cold-hearted nature, something which was not present here. Why? Because he'd never done it before, but he had several times during the other occasions. In this instance, there was warmth, there was delaying, and there was apprehension. Walter was manipulated and tricked by the victim. One thing about this kill that makes it the most difficult one that Walter White did was that he was on the verge of releasing Crazy 8 from the basement. He was a matter of moments away from releasing him before he realized that part of the plate that he smashed on the floor when he passed out was hidden by Crazy 8, and he planned on using it on him if he was eventually free. We saw how easy it was for Walt to be tricked by Crazy 8 when Domingo started revealing his life story to him, telling him about his family and the furniture shop that his family owned, which Walt had even shopped in, providing that sense of personality and making it more difficult for Walt to deal with it because there was a life that was there. Walt was questioned over his illness, asked if his family knew about it, and they even bonded over family life and the fact that they didn't live that far from one another, and also how they ended up following different paths. The moment where Walt was won over and the manipulation had reached its peak was when he offered Crazy 8 a second beer, and he viewed him as human and somebody that he was almost enjoying bonding with. That second beer represented socializing. No longer was this a hostage situation. This was two people getting to know each other over a beer. Human is something which I imagine most killers don't see their victims as, and it's something that Walt most definitely stopped viewing people as the episodes went on and he killed more. Crazy 8 was promising Walt money if he let him go, and told him that the lifestyle wasn't for him, so much so that Walt started crying and mentioned that he didn't know what to do, and that he was going to go and get the key. So in that moment of the process, Walter didn't plan on killing Crazy 8. He had it in his head that he was going to let him go, and he had the key for the lock in his hand. Crazy 8 had managed to take advantage of the inexperienced Walter White and the fact that he was just a regular folk who didn't want to be in this situation. the actual killing. When it came to the killing taking place, we saw that Walt went downstairs into the basement and he tricked Crazy 8 into thinking that he was going to release him. However, he knew that Crazy 8 had the piece of the plate ready to attack him with, as Walt came to the realization that he needed to finish him off, and that Crazy 8 had tricked him this entire time and that he would be killed if he didn't finish him off there. We saw the worried look on Walt's face again, the further delaying, which once again tied back to the apprehension which was present at the start. But as he put his hand around the bike lock, we saw him shed a single tear, knowing full well that he was going to take a life in an extremely brutal fashion, and one which made him quite literally have blood on his hands. Unlike the poison that he created, which occurred in the RV due to the mixing of the chemicals that he put together, this was something which was personal. It was in the same room, he felt the weight of the death, and after getting to know Crazy 8 and his life story and everything about his background, there was a personal connection there, albeit not close, but there was a life and a story behind the individual. This was the first true killing that Walter White did, and it was the one that I believe was the hardest for Walter White to do, and the one that birthed the killer that we went on to see later on down the line in the remainder of the seasons. Although Walter White carried out many more brutal killings over the years, and ones where they looked like they were difficult for him, hey, you could even argue the fact that he was semi-responsible for Hank's death, which was hard for him, but that second kill that he carried out, the first where his hands were responsible in that moment, it was one where we saw a nervous man have to do something that he never imagined doing. The progression of the killings that he made, the first being Emilio where he didn't have to look at him, the second being Crazy 8 where his back was to him, and the third being Jane where he was looking directly at her in the eyes, shows the slow demise of the character, and that when he left Jane, he was already the killer. If that moment had have occurred when he took out Crazy 8, he would have most definitely saved her. So Crazy 8 was Walter White's most difficult kill, and the most important kill, because if he had have let him go, Walt wouldn't have made it out alive. And if he didn't kill him, then he would have most likely never gone on to be the person that we saw developing over the 5 seasons. So it's most definitely a choice that I'm going to stand by. So, there you have it, Walter White's most difficult kill in Breaking Bad. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What do you think was Walter White's most difficult kill? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.